For this tutorial, I'm going to be going over how to use packets from the network library. Packets are useful for synchronizing single integers. Packets can also synchronize these single integers from multiple players. So one player might have one integer while another player has another integer. Both of these integers are the same value, and you can synchronize both at once. So let's take an example. Let's say we have a local integer I. And even before this, to ensure synchronization works, you need to wait for the game to start. And to call the wait for game to start function, you have to call it within a executed thread. So I'm going to go ahead and do an executed thread here. And then call wait for game to start. Then over here I'm going to make a method called doStuff. So the very first thing I'll do is I'll make a local integer I. And if getLocalPlayer is equal to player 0, then I'm going to set I equal to 5. And how about we set it to 0 for all the other players? And how about else if getLocalPlayer is equal to player 7, then I'm going to set to 8. And how about else if getLocalPlayer is equal to player 9, then I'll set it to 12. So now I has 4 different values. 0 for the regular players, 5 for player 0, 8 for player 7, and 12 for player 9. So now I'm going to go ahead and synchronize it. First I need to declare a packet. To synchronize it, use the broadcast method for packets. And that returns a packet. So I'll pass in the variable I want to synchronize, which is I. It could also be some value like 5 or whatever, it's just an integer. And then some boolean that states whether I want to synchronize it for that player or not. So like I could say getLocalPlayer is equal to player 0. So now it's only going to sync from player 0. But I have 3 I values here I want to sync. So I'm going to say I not equal to 0. So I'll end up syncing this one, and this one. All 3 I values. After that, it'll be synced. So now if I go ahead and call display time text to player I2S packet 0, that'll display 5 right here. This is a method operator, and it takes the player ID. So this is player 0 right here for 5. If I put in 7, it'll display 8, and if I put in 9, it'll display 12. Now it's only going to display these values if these players are actual players, not computers or not something non-existent. They have to be real players, human players. So if I just ran this by myself, this would be the only packet to show, because I'd be player 0 and these 2 players wouldn't exist. But if I ran it in a multiplayer game and there was a player 7 and a player 9, it would show 5, 8, and 12. And you can pass in any player ID. Another useful method is the has method, and that tells you whether a value exists inside of a packet or not. So you could go if packet.has and then pass in the player ID like 0, then has value. So this would be true right here since I'm player 0 and I obviously have the value. But if I pass in something like 7, that would only be true if player 7 was in the game. If I pass in 6, this would never be true because I don't have any values for player 6 over here. I just have values for players 0, 7, and 9. This is only useful for synchronizing single integers. It can be useful for something like file I/O and networking. For example, if you wanted to see how many integers you had in your file, you could store the count as the first integer in the file. Then you could synchronize that with a packet and allocate your stream using that size, and then do the rest with the stream module. So you really need both the stream module and the packet struct. They're both quite useful. And of course, when you're done with your packet, you call packet.destroy. Now, since I am not going to be able to do a multiplayer game here with multiple players, I can't really test the map to show you guys the behavior here, but I can at least save it to show that there are no syntax errors. So that's Packet in a nutshell.